Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, friends and family, and random people who have stumbled upon this by mistake, welcome to the 278th annual 4th grade Mask Assembly. I'm Dave Lawton, and I've been here since the Pleistocene era, and I'm so happy to be hosting yet again. Now, while the times have changed, the basic format of this assembly and its great mysteries remain the same. Here's a practice video. Students get ready to guess. Teachers get ready to pause. First, you'll meet a character. Next, you'll hear lines from the book that character will say.
Everybody, do your typing. Stop looking at your fingers.
At that point, teachers, please pause the video so the students can make a guess as to who that character is. After you've taken 3 guesses from the studio audience, start the video again and that character's identity will be revealed. After we reveal the identity of the character, pause the video again and take some guesses from your studio audience as to the identity of the 4th grader under the mask. Then, play the video again to see if those guesses were correct. All right, now that we've got the rules and procedures down, let's get this going and meet our very first book character.
In the last 4 years, I have been run over by trucks, hit by machine gun fire, thrown through plate glass windows, and drowned in quicksand. But none of those things frightened me as much as the thought of saying 7 lines of dialogue.
If you thought this character was Johnny Time from Johnny Hang Time, you were correct. If you thought this was really Bryce under the mask, you were right.
So this is it, the worst and most terrible thing of all. I have been seen. Whatever happened to Eglatina will now almost certainly happen to me.
If you thought this character was Arrietty from The Borrowers, you were correct. If you thought this was really Elsa under the mask, you were right.
I still think about the letter you asked me to write. It nags at me, even though you're gone and there's no one to give it to anymore. It's all still there, like a movie I can watch when I want to, which is never.
If you thought this character was Miranda from When You Reach Me, you are correct. If you thought this really was Elle under the mask, you were right.
Yes, Bright Bill, I'm trying to act like a good mother.
If you thought this character was Roz from The Wild Robot, you are correct. If you thought this was Ian, you were right.
I start training next week. Wood said keep it a secret, so don't tell.
If you thought this character was Harry Potter from Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone, you were right. If you thought this was Peter under the mask, you were right.
Our songs are good. All three of you know what I've been through and how hard it was for me to play music again. And then you do this? Bands don't do that to each other. Friends don't do that to each other. This was a mistake.
If you thought this was the character Julie from the book Julie and the Phantoms, you're right. If you thought this was Samantha, you're correct.
Things weren't going so well. I had betrayed Alexia by being nice to Danielle, thinking that this was what Bella Teal would have done. Then suddenly, Danielle turned on me.
If you thought this character was Jessica from the book Because of Mr. Terupt, you were right. If you thought this was really Hattie, you're right.
I don't want to go to school. I want to stay home with you. I want to play with my friends and play with my toys and read my books and swing on my swing. Please may I stay home with you?
If you guessed Chester from the book The Kissing Hand, you are correct. If you guessed that it was Amir, you are correct.
I can hold up the cup and the milk and the cake. I can hold up these books and the fish on a rake.
If you thought this character was the Cat in the Hat from The Cat in the Hat, you are correct. If you thought this was really Leah, you're right.
Today is a special day. I have a surprise planned and lots to do to get ready. You can help me by staying out of trouble.
If you thought this was The Man with the Yellow Hat, you were right, from the book Curious George, of course. If you thought this was really Peter, you are right.
I was taken from my mother. Like you, I was brought to a family who loved me and whom I love. I cannot stop loving that family, and I don't want to. I can only allow my love to increase. I love the grandmother who raised me. I love the mother I lost. My love is boundless. My heart is infinite, and my joy expands and expands. You'll see.
If you thought this was the character Luna from The Girl Who Drank the Moon, you're right. If you thought this was Siri, you are correct.
Father, if I've done anything good, anything you approve of, help me now. I offer my own life. Just save my friends.
If you thought this was the character Jason from The Lost Hero, you were right. If you thought this was Xander, you're right.
I didn't know I'd lost a button. Tonight I'll go and see if I can find it.
If you thought this was the character Corduroy from the book of the same name, you are right. If you thought this was Annie, you are right.
If my father is so interested in me, why isn't he here? Why doesn't he speak to me?
If you thought this character was Percy Jackson from Percy Jackson and the Lightning Thief, you were correct. If you thought this really was Grant, you are correct.
Even though we had thwarted Spider's plans 4 times, we still didn't know much about them, and neither did anyone else at the CIA. In fact, until the year before, no one at the CIA had known that Spider even existed.
If you thought this character was Benjamin Ripley from Spy School Goes South, you were right. If you guessed that this was really Ben, you're correct.
At some point, you have to stop running and turn around and face whoever wants you dead. The hard thing is finding the courage to do it.
If you thought this character was Katniss Everdeen from The Hunger Games Catching Fire, you are correct. If you thought this real 4th grader was Lola, you're right.
Trust me, I'm a genius.
If you thought this character was Artemis Fowl from Artemis Fowl and the Eternity Code, you are correct. If you thought this 4th grader was Trevor, you are correct.
The next thing we knew, the stupid fire alarm was going off. The whole school had to go outside, and even the fire department showed up. It was great.
If you thought this was the character Peter from the book Because of Mr. Terupt, you're correct. If you thought this was really Annabelle, you're right.
First of all, this is a journal, not a diary. I know what it says on the cover, but when my mom went out to buy this thing, I specifically told her to get one that didn't say diary on it.
If you thought that this was Greg Heffley from the book Diary of a Wimpy Kid, you're right. If you guessed that this was George, you are correct.
It worked, but not fast enough. Michael got sick before his body could fight the cancer off. I didn't save him.
If you thought this was the character Jeffrey from the book Because of Mr. Terupt, you are correct. If you thought this really was Oliver, you are correct.
Has anyone seen a toad? Neville's lost one.
If you thought this character was Hermione from Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone, you are correct. If you thought this was Nadia under the mask, you were right.
The one with the dried plums. Oh, I eat it by the bucketful. Doesn't show, does it?
If you thought this was the character Caesar Flickerman from The Hunger Games, you're correct. If you thought this was really Mustafa under the mask, you're correct.
I'm hard to catch. If they can't catch me, they can't kill me. So don't count me out.
If you thought this was the character Rue from The Hunger Games, you were right. If you thought under the mask was Calais, you are right.
Tra-la-la.
If you thought this was Captain Underpants from a book of the same name, you are correct. If you thought this was Tanner, you were right.
Take the Grand Army soldiers to Pinocchio prison, but let the witches go. I want to set the record straight that I have nothing against them.
If you thought this character was Alex Bailey from Land of Stories, you're correct. If you thought this was really Emmy under the mask, you were right.
Don't worry, you're just as sane as I am.
If you thought this character was Luna Lovegood from Harry Potter, you are correct. If you thought this was Sienna, you're right.
My comics aren't stupid, Gina, which you'd know if you'd spent a little time studying them.
If you thought this was the character Big Nate from Big Nate Strikes Again, you were correct. You thought the fourth grader under this mask was Gabriel, you were correct.
Thank you all for being great friends. See, Gerald, I'm a thinking machine.
If you thought this character was Piggy from the Thank You book, Elephant and Piggy, you were right. If you thought this was Aria, you are correct.
Good morning. We don't want any adventures here. Thank you.
If you thought that this was Bilbo Baggins from The Hobbit, You're right. If you thought this was really Samuel, you're correct.
I should warn you, I'm not exactly the luckiest guy in the world.
If you thought this character was Stanley Yelnats from Holes, you're right. If you thought this real fourth grader was Amy, you were correct.
I am not fat. I am not fat. Well built maybe, but not fat.
If you thought this character was Obelix from Asterix the Gaul, you are correct. If you thought this was really Krish under the mask, you're correct.
But we aren't going to steal the crown jewels now, so it's all been a massive waste of time.
If you thought this character was Ben from Gangsta Granny, you were correct. If you thought this was really Gavin under the mask, you were right.
If people knowed about the spring down there in Tree Gap, they'd all come running like pigs to slops. They'd trample each other trying to get a sip of that water. That'd be bad enough, but afterwards, can you imagine? All the little ones live forever, all the old ones old forever. Could you picture what that means, forever?
If you thought this character was Angus Tuck from the book Tuck Everlasting, you were correct. If you thought this was Christian, you were right.
I find my life is a lot easier the lower I keep everyone's expectations.
If you thought this character was Calvin from Calvin and Hobbes, you're correct. If you thought this was really Jack, you're right. So that concludes our show of our 34 book characters and fourth graders. Cohorts, can you give them a hand? They did such a great job. Thank you all. Thanks everybody for coming. And now, a couple of end of assembly surprises. the Percy Jackson stories. You were right. You want me to do that again?
No, I'll cut it.
Okay. From the book Because of Mr. Terrupt. Did I say that wrong? How do you say? Because of Mr. Terrupt. Because of Mr. Terrupt. Because of Mr. Terrupt.
Now what you're gonna do is pick up your. No. Let's just see what happens.
That's what I was worried about.
Yeah, this one.
Here?
Yeah, and then say nice and loud, your line.
I should warn you, I'm.
No, sorry, I take it back. This is kind of amazing. Just keep your face looking forward.
Done.